2004. Josephine Street, Central City, New Orleans. The tension between Telly Hankton and his young group of associates has been cut with violence. Hankton has just tried to take out two of the group's members, Brian "Pluck" Broussard and Rodney "Doo Doo" Robinson. But there is no confusion about who is in control of Josephine Street. The Hankton family is involved in or aware of all activity in the neighborhood. To that point, when Broussard and Robinson were rushed to the hospital after the shooting, not only did the entire Hankton family show up at the hospital, but Telly Hankton was there as well. The Hanktons had a tight grip on Josephine Street. But Hankton was about to make it tighter. It's November of 2004. Rodney Robinson was back hanging out on Josephine Street. And just like in the case of Broussard, Robinson had began openly talking about killing Telly Hankton amongst his group.
Doo Doo was saying what he was going to do to Telly because he was shot. And I guess Telly heard what he was going to do.
On November 17, 2004, Robinson was on the corner of Saratoga and Josephine Streets. He was speaking with a man named Darnell Stewart, the younger brother of LaToya Stewart, who was also present at the time. She testified about what happened next.
Telly came out of nowhere, running with a gun, and Doo Doo saw him and he ran through the crowd, and he ran through Darnell and Doo Doo was running, and Doo Doo ran for like a half a block before he was shot in the back. He ran down Saratoga, but when he was shot, that's when he kind of collapsed on the gate. But he rose back up and ran to the 6th District Police Station.
Rodney Robinson survives again, but Telly Hankton is just getting started. Darnell Durney Stewart is another one of the young group's members who had began receiving threats from Telly Hankton. The Stewarts moved from their home on Josephine, but they still hung out in the neighborhood every day. As far as Hankton was concerned, at this point everybody was guilty by association.
Telly told Bo to tell Durney to stop hanging on Josephine because I guess he felt like Durney was brewing him up and threatening, looking like he wanted to kill him over the situation with Pluck. After the warning, Bo, who was one of Hankton's closest associates, would run into Darnell Stewart again. On April 7, 2005, the two men stood on Josephine having a stare-down. According to LaToya Stewart, the moment was so intense that she told Darnell Stewart to leave because she knew something bad was about to happen. About 15 to 20 minutes later, Telly Hankton arrives. Stewart testified that she saw Hankton talking to Bo and two other associates. Hankton allegedly handed the three men a firearm and then sent them off on their way. Moments later, Rodney "Doo Doo" Robinson, Darnell Durney Stewart, and Brian "Pluck" Broussard were making a U-turn at the intersection of Washington and LaSalle Streets when a gray SUV pulled up alongside their vehicle and opened fire on the three men. Broussard and Stewart were both hit in the shooting, but survived. The war was on.
We are gonna die out here if they do not see somebody out here right now.
On August 23, 2005, Hurricane Katrina rocked the city of New Orleans. It was a catastrophic storm that would change the city forever. But it wasn't long before the war on Josephine Street would resume. In April of 2006, LaToya Stewart and her brother Darnell Stewart were back in New Orleans. One day while driving down Josephine Street, she spotted a man hanging out in front of her old home. The man was Terran Jackson, also known as P-Dub. Jackson is one of Telly Hankton's closest associates and one of the three men who were seen talking to Hankton moments before her brother was shot. LaToya Stewart.
I was angry and I pulled my brother around the corner because he was in a car behind me. We parked around the corner and we talked about it. And I said he shouldn't be on our porch. And he told me go home. He was gonna take care of it.
Moments later, Jackson was shot in the face and his body was left in an empty lot directly across the street from the Stewarts' old home. LaToya Stewart had a conversation with his killers minutes later.
They say he walked up on them. He was on the phone and he was telling a girl that somebody walking up on him. And P-Dub was like, the girl was telling him run. And he said no, he wasn't running. And Darby had asked him his name. Was his name P-Dub?
And he said, yeah, and that's when he shot him in the face. Darvin shot P-Dub in the face.
The man Stewart refers to as Darvin is a man named Darvin Bessie. Authorities believe that Telly Hankton shot and killed Bessie one day after the body of Jackson was found on Josephine Street. Bessie was 20 years old at the time of his death. His body was found in the 1800 block of Martin Luther King Boulevard, 7 blocks from Josephine Street. At trial, a witness testified that he witnessed Hankton shooting Bessie on the front porch as he sat in his car. On April 12, 2007, Telly Hankton and Troy Hankton allegedly fired into a vehicle that was occupied by Darnell Stewart, Jesse Tutu Reed, and another man named Kareem Peters as the group sat outside of the Red Rooster Snowball stand on Clara Street. Kareem Peters was wounded but survived. Troy Hankton admitted to his participation in this shooting in a plea deal. 8 months later, the same 3 men who were targeted in the Snowball Stand shooting allegedly murdered Telly Hankton's cousin George Cup Hankton outside of a car wash in Gert Town. LaToya Stewart testified at trial about her knowledge of the murder.
They met up at a barbershop and they got into it at the barbershop for a second time. The man put them out and Cup was calling some boys from the 17th to come around there. And while he was on the phone, Durney and another guy was in a car. And Tutu and Kareem walked behind Cup, shooting him. He never looked back and saw them behind him. He was too busy watching Durney and the other guy in the car.
George Cup Hankton was a major figure in New Orleans. His death was a heavy blow to the Hankton family, and for Telly Hankton, retaliation was an absolute must.